All right, here we go. Overdrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 4. Brian Hayes and Frankie Corrado on a beautiful Wednesday afternoon here in Toronto. What's happening over there, Frankie?
You ever see something and then you can't unsee it?
Okay, yes. What do you have?
I've seen Donnie Trump's putting stroke.
It's outrageous.
It's all I see when I close my eyes now.
I know.
And I'm just thinking, like, the next time I get on the course, I want to try it. Like, I don't know how you get into that kind of stroke. I don't know. Maybe you had the yips at some point and this was the cure for it. But there is no other explanation for having a putting stroke like that.
It's like he rolls over the wrist as if he's trying to punch out of like a heavy fescue. You know what I'm saying? You know that like Arnie Palmer heavy fescue?
Look at that thing.
It's so jabby, yet it's effective, I guess. I mean, him and Bryson DeChambeau, they did that Breaking 50 video that is completely blown up on YouTube. And this is what Bryson's been doing, right? Like since he went to Live Golf, he has exploded online trying to do, creative golf videos, which is a big part of kind of the golf world right now. Like you have the PGA Tour, Live Golf, and then you have online like influencer YouTube golf world that's incredibly popular. And Trump, I haven't seen the video. I've seen some shots. I saw the video of him pull his golf cart literally right on to the tee box,
right?
Which I love.
Right onto it. Like,
I love that.
There couldn't have been less of a distance for him to walk from that chair to the tee. I watched it today. Like, okay, I don't think we need to break it down. Like, we're not going to break down the tape on this. Just a couple observations. Trump would be a dangerous guy to play in like a net kind of stroke player match play thing because he never misses fairways. Mm-hmm. Like he's a fairway finder. He hit a couple good like shots on par threes, but the putting stroke, like watching that putting stroke would throw me off in a match. Like I think I would be so distracted by that thing.
Yeah,
it is so ugly. But I guess, I don't know, he finds a way. He's the 22-time club champion, so he must be doing something right.
Every course he owns, I think he's won the club championship somehow. Not the senior club championship, right? Like that's proof that he's fit for the job. That was his battle with Joe Biden back in the day, was how his golf game's going.
He's the club champion, and there's got to be guys that are like +2, +3s playing at these courses. Like, call it for what it is, man. The guy owns some pretty spectacular clubs.
Yeah, he does.
You got to have some coin, and guys that are golf enthusiasts are going to be really good golfers at these places. And he walks up there with the fairway finder and that putting stroke, and he's like, actually, I'm the champ.
Yeah, he rolls it, man. And obviously he can play. Like he plays almost every day. I see video of him walking around clubhouses basically every day. So he plays a lot. And as a result, he's a pretty good player. But you're right. It's a weird thing. Like golfers, I can speak to it. I'm sure you can. If you get a tip on something and it works, it does not matter what it looks like. You will do it. You will try it out. Someone might say you got to spin 3 times before you hit the ball. If you spin 3 times, then you throw a dart at the pin, you're going to do that every single time.
Dude,
regardless of how stupid you look. I putt left-handed.
You're a right-handed golfer, and
That's
you putt
right.
left-handed.
Because I'm better that way.
I do the cross-handed stroke now. It probably looks ridiculous, but I putt better, or I think I putt better that way. So, like, we're both in our own heads.
Right,
and
it's
now,
effective.
Yeah, I mean, we hope it's effective.
You try to be, but you're right. The confidence level is higher with you doing whatever you think is better as opposed to what might look better is, I guess, what we're getting to here.
Yes, exactly. And now I wonder, okay, you and I, like, we're not chops. We're okay. We're like between a 5 and 8 handicaps. If we played from the red tees, the forward tees, pick a course in the GTA, like, could we break 60? I don't know about 50.
50
like
we're not breaking.
No, Bryson's carrying that. Like, he's a PGA, he's a Live Tour professional. Guy's won majors. But could we break 60, you and I doing a scramble from the forward
I think
tees?
we could. I think forward tees, if you're playing about 5,000 yards, give or take, you give us a course that's like wide open, big fairways, soft greens. Yes, I believe we can do that. The question, too, would be if you played like the toughest course from the tips, could we break 75? I don't know. I'm curious where it would go the other way. But I wonder if what Trump does in order to get a leg up on his opponents is send a drone out in advance to kind of survey the green before he hits. because maybe he'd have to take a page out of Canada Soccer's book here with Drone Gate, which drops right before the Olympic Games. And it's so embarrassing for the country. We talked about it right at the end of the show yesterday. And admittedly, when I saw the news come in, Doogie had sent us all an internal email or text or whatever. It didn't really dawn on me like the significance of what we were talking about. I remember we read the tweet at like 6:50. There were like 3 minutes left in the show. We read it off. We're like, oh, it's kind of interesting. And I think Gord was the one that said this could be really big. And by the time we got home, Frankie, you and I, it had kind of exploded. And as the night went on, you realized there were more than one drones. There was Drone Gate is plural now. There are drones involved here, and multiple coaches. Like they tried to sell it off as like, well, they don't have any accreditation, so they're not actually legitimate, which is completely bogus. These were like legit coaches on the staff that I guess were responsible for running these drones. And they've been sent home. Priestman is trying to fall on the sword by taking herself out of the match against New Zealand, which is so desperate. But I will give her credit, and I guess Canada Soccer for that matter, because as of now, it's enough, and people are willing to accept, okay, the head coach, again, like Belichick, like Harbaugh. This is like Harbaugh, the same thing, Jim Harbaugh in Michigan, sending people ahead to track what's going on with future opponents. And eventually Harbaugh, he got suspended, and then I think he coached the bowl games, and he got out of there because he realized, I got to go, man. This isn't going to work for me. Priestman's taken herself out of the match against New Zealand, but then she will resume her duties. I suppose that's punitive enough, but she's at the top, right? Like she's the coach. Yeah. She's the one that has to be running the whole operation, and it's just a complete embarrassment for the country. It couldn't come at a worse time right before the Olympic Games begin, where, I think everyone in this country, it's not about who the flag bearers are going to be. It's not about what kind of medal chasing we're going to do now. We're 48 hours away from the opening ceremony, and we're talking about cheating against New Zealand.
That's
of all
thing.
Countries.
Like we are especially on the women's side, we are a very accomplished soccer nation. Like we medal at the Olympics. We win these big tournaments, and we have to cheat with drones to see what New Zealand is doing?
Against New Zealand. Like, I'll give you the Americans, maybe. If you're not cheating, you're not trying against the U.S. New Zealand, we need drones to beat New Zealand.
Like, watch the tape. Watch the games. What the hell are you going to see in a practice that you can't see in the game? And the other thing that comes to mind when it comes to Priestman, either you didn't know that it was happening, and that's negligent on your part, or you did know it was happening, and you're part of it. Like, I don't know which way looks worse for her in that situation.
If she was involved, she has to go immediately. Yeah. Like, that would be my stance on it. You can't let the underlings take the fall completely. Now, again, Canada Soccer, they're going to launch their own independent investigation here. I would assume they've spoken with Priestman, and Priestman was kind of, I guess, dodgy is probably the appropriate way of putting it in terms of her explaining her role in the whole thing, where she did take accountability, but she was asked specifically, did you know? Did you know that this was going on? Why don't we play the audio? Because she did an interview. Again, this is blowing up. It's blown up over the last 24 hours. It's probably only going to get bigger and bigger as we actually get to the real stuff here. Here is Priestman, the head coach of the national team, on Drone Gate with New Zealand.
First of all, I'd like to apologise. I think on behalf of the leader of this programme, I think on behalf of, I'm ultimately accountable. I think that's why it was really important to me, I think, to take this moment to show strong leadership and to represent the values of this country, of the team, and of myself.
So again, not really an answer on whether or not she knew what was going on. Again, I can't imagine she's going to say that publicly. I don't know what's going to come out of it in terms of the investigation. I guess you go right to the coaches who you sent home and you ask them first and foremost, like, did Priestman put you up to this? Right. Because if she did, again, I don't know how you possibly survive this. We're talking with the national. You're representing the country. This isn't private enterprise.
Yeah,
right? Like, it's a little bit different in the NHL, NFL. College football, again, a little bit shady, but we're past, we're not naive anymore. We understand that college football is a massive business and it's about winning and recruiting, and the football team basically pays for everything else within the school. So a guy like Harbaugh is going to survive that. This is the national team. This is public funding that's going to this. And if Bev Priestman is at the top and possibly launching this escapade to go out there and spy on teams on our behalf, that's a complete embarrassment and cannot be accepted.
And maybe even worse, Hayes, it would be such an indictment to know that your underlings are doing these type of activities behind your back. Like, get a grip on your staff and what's going on. Like, you have to have, maybe you don't have to micromanage every little thing, but you can't have your staff doing these kinds of things because it makes you look bad. It makes the program look bad. It makes the country look bad. People are in trouble. And now, like, doesn't the question come up, has this happened before? Like,
yeah,
where else have you done this and you didn't get caught? Like, did you have drones for any other tournament or the Olympics? Like, I don't know. When you're the leader, whether you like it or not, this type of stuff happens. You're the one responsible, whether you knew about it or not, because you either weren't paying enough attention to the people under you, or you were the one that spearheaded it.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think what has happened here is, if you're Bev Priestman, if you're any of the members of the coaching staff, you probably have to win now to save your job. Like, literally, you have to medal, possibly be in a gold medal match, because if you don't, then it's going to be so easy for Canada Soccer and the COC just to push it aside and say, we're out. Like, we're not going to continue with this. So the pressure's there anyway, but now, like, it's the utmost of pressure because of the position, the whole program has found itself in, with the drones and checking out what's going on with the practices.
How did the drones clear customs? Do you wonder about the logistics of this? Like, if the drones came from Canada, you know how far out and premeditated this had to be, to pack it, to make sure you got everything. They're all charged up and ready to go. And it's like, let's put those babies in the air. Or you got there and you said, let's hit Radio Shack, French Radio Shack, and let's buy a couple drones.
Right.
And we're going to pay cash because it's off the books.
It's got to be
spy
cash.
on New Zealand. Like,
straight cash, man. Euros.
The logistics of it, I can't wrap my head around that.
It is a great question. Like, were you checking the drones? Right? Like, did you wrap them in towels and pack them in separate baggage and pay for the extra baggage? Because you have to do that now. Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
a drug mule.
It's a drone mule. You're a drone mule.
Yeah, exactly.
You're a drone mule.
It's all taped up. Like 14 kilograms of cocaine going to France.
It's a drone mule. We have drone mules going over there trying to track what's going on with New Zealand.
Outrageous.
And the fallout, I guess, again, is substantial. Like, two members of the staff have been sent home. Bev Priestman will not be on the sidelines against New Zealand, and it sets up for a conundrum against New Zealand. Like, if you beat New Zealand, like, you have to beat New Zealand now. But if you lose to New Zealand, basically what's going to come out of that is you needed drone coverage, and that's, you couldn't beat them fair and square. So that explains why you were possibly, shooting their practice facility or trying to pick up on whatever tactics they could be running. Like, I think it's uber pressure now. You got to beat New Zealand. And I think, again, you've got to really perform. You've got to medal. And that was the expectation anyway. It's not going to be easy. It's not as if Canada's the best team in the world. It's not going to be easy to medal, but they did 4 years ago. It was incredible. It was the triumphant moment maybe of the games, what happened in Tokyo. And obviously they're going to try to double down on that again this year. And once the ball gets kicked off and you start playing again, it's not on the players. Like, the players are going to have to answer for it and talk about it. But it's not, and I feel for the athletes. Like, I feel for the athletes who it's going to be overshadowed. Again, the same kind of thing happened with Michigan. Like, they go all the way and win a national title, and it's kind of hanging over them, this Harbaugh and Spygate stuff. And same thing with the Patriots, where I know no one sympathizes for Brady and the Pats, but what was going on there with Spygate and Belichick and all the different shady business that's happened over the course of time, it took away, in the eyes of some, the achievements of the athletes. Yeah. And I certainly hope that doesn't happen this time. If the women go on and have a great tournament and possibly medal, hopefully this isn't going to be a blemish.
And this is just another instance, Hayes, where Canada soccer can't get out of its own way.
Yes.
You know, like they had all kinds of momentum on the men's side after the World Cup, and then every headline you read after that was about funding, and it wasn't great. There was a lot of turmoil between the players and who's running things, and now you got the women's side involved. And, you know, the players obviously will be the ones who are victims of it, like you said, but it's another year where this program on the women's side or the men's side is going to be marred by something controversial, something negative, instead of kind of harnessing the positivity that, you know, the men's side would basically have just built up with Copa America.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost as if they have to, like, both programs can't be flying at the same time. You know, forever we're waiting for the men's side to catch up because the women have been so good for so long. And that's another thing that sticks out. Christine Sinclair retires and all hell breaks loose. Right. You know, like for the first time ever, Christine's not around. And it's like we're flying drones and trying to figure out what's going on with the New Zealand practice facility. But yeah, the men are high flying now. And it's not that the women, again, won't perform well. It's just that this, again, is an embarrassing story leading into the games. But don't you worry, Frankie. The staff members are going to take an ethics course when they get home.
Good.
Which ultimately I do think is probably to blame here, where how could they possibly know not to fly drones without taking the ethics course?
Buddy, are you kidding me?
Like if they had have taken the ethics course, they would have known, oh, yes, that's right. I'm not allowed to fly a drone over a team practice facility. The ethics course. That'll get the job done.
Mandatory ethics course. That'll teach you to not fly a drone over your opponent's practice facility and premeditate this whole thing.
It's
just all that is just saying we did something. We implemented something. So you can't say that we didn't.
I know.
That's all that is.
Like I could already picture. And on what ethics course is there going to be a drone flying question that's going to possibly apply to this situation, right? Like we've all taken these courses and it's always multiple choice. If your coach, if your employer comes to you and says, I need you to fly a drone over an opponent's practice facility, do you A, agree to fly the drone, B, don't agree but don't report, or C, don't agree but report the infraction? C, check mark. You're cured. You're absolutely
ethical.
You're ethical now. You got it. You're moving in the right direction. You can get another job because you took the ethics course, and now you know you're not allowed to fly drones over a practice facility. So we'll get to the bottom of this.
But can I ask you a question? Like, did I see somewhere today that there was like an 8-month imprisonment for someone who was involved in this thing because the drone was flown over like an area you cannot fly over? It's like a no-fly zone. So I think I
didn't see that.
It's quite serious. I got to double check this because I thought I saw something along those lines where it's like it's actually more serious than just spying on, a soccer practice. Like I think this was like a no-fly zone, and they were.
That seems pretty extreme. Yeah. That I was not aware of that angle. Again, I'm more focused on New Zealand here, a team that I think we beat every time we play them. But anyway, yeah, we'll get to the bottom of this as we move forward. Our buddy Brendan Dunlop will join us just after 5 o'clock as we prepare for the Olympic Games, including the flag bearers being announced. We'll get into that as well. And this story completely overshadowed it. Like they had been promoting it for weeks, obviously, leading up to this. Like who's going to carry in the flags? Which man, which woman, which two great Canadians are going to do this? And it's been completely overshadowed by this story. So Brendan Dunlop will join us just after 5. Corey Connors, he's on his way over there. Corey will join us. We'll get his take on the Open Championship, get his take on what he expects coming up in Paris. So we'll catch up with him. Some big news out of Edmonton today. Stan Bowman hired as the new GM of the Oilers. Frankie and I will talk about that later this afternoon. And role play level of concern still to come around 5:30. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line of the final score. Got the Olympic Games coming up, the opening ceremonies on Friday. And Corey Connors, man, he's traveling because obviously the tour, makes so many different stops all over North America. And then the Open Championship was in Troon in Scotland. And then he's got to get to Paris for this week. But my understanding is he came home I don't know why I'm wondering. I'm asking this as if I can't get to the bottom of this because we actually have Corey joining us right now. Here he is, Corey Connors. What's happening, Corey? Are you in Canada or are you still overseas?
Yeah, hey guys, back home in Listowel, Ontario. So came
Okay.
home, was over there for a few weeks, and figured it was worth it to come home for a few days, see the wife and daughter.
I
Hang out
like
at
that.
home.
Yeah, mix in a little bit of time at home before you head back over to Paris. How unique, you mentioned that overseas for multiple tournaments, and then it culminates in the Open Championship. You make the cut. You had a great week. How unique is that experience? Like those 2 or 3 weeks overseas compared to your every other day life on the PGA Tour?
Yeah, it's definitely different. Obviously, in a different country, not as familiar of surroundings, but it's really cool. Was in Scotland for the last 2 weeks, and it's a beautiful country. It's so much history of the game of golf in Scotland, and so many great golf courses. So it's really fun to be there, and got to play another Open Championship, another major is always really special. And Troon was a good test. It was fun golf course to play. Dealt with some crazy weather a couple of the days, which made it interesting. But that's what you get sometimes over there. And again, it was a good experience, and I felt pretty good about the game. Had some fun.
I'm curious to get your thoughts on something at Royal Troon. So much of the talk is rolling back the golf ball or making the courses long. And one of the best holes, one of the holes that everyone wanted to see was the postage stamp hole. It's like 100 yards. How do you guys feel about a hole like that, and especially surrounding all the narratives about, making courses longer because it's too gettable for everyone, but everyone wants to watch that 100-yard hole?
Yeah, it's all the greatest par threes that come to my mind. And that was my first time playing the postage stamp, but it was an unbelievable hole. Played 100 yards on Sunday. I think the most it played was maybe 120. So it was some sort of wedge every time. It was an unbelievable hole. I feel like the elements over there, make the courses challenging. If there's no wind or it's a nice sunny day, honestly, pretty simple hole. The green's small, but with a wedge, we're looking to hit it pretty close. But with the wind howling, I missed the green a couple times. I had to basically chip away from the hole on Saturday. I was able to make a bogey, which I was thrilled with on a 100 and whatever yard hole. So it's pretty cool. And then again on Sunday, some of the weather we faced, there was some longer par fours I couldn't even reach into in the rain and wind. So rolling back the ball would have certainly made things a little more challenging, but it wasn't like we were overpowering the golf course. You have to still hit shots and be creative, but there's some amazing short holes.
Yeah, and you think at 12 at Augusta, obviously the famous par 3 at Pebble, as well as at 7, I think it is, where it plays 100 yards or whatever. And I mean, you guys, when you show up at a U.S. Open, even at the RBC Canadian Open, they've set up, we've been at the rink hole now for years, and you guys are hitting 5 irons in, 4 irons in all the time. Like there are some, you get to U.S. Opens, and it's like 250, 260-yard par 3s. Like how do you make sense of that? Like, is it even annoying for you guys where you got to play wherever you got to put the peg in the ground is where you got to put the peg in the ground? But do you ever show up at a course and say, what's the purpose of this? It's still a tough course. It's a par 3. Shorten it up, and maybe we get some more excitement and more craziness.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of that. I was happy this year at Hamilton, they could have played it longer than they did. So we were able to, only hit 5s and 6 irons there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, at the US Open, they've had multiple par 3s, like pushing 300 yards even over the last handful of years. And it's a little bit silly. I don't think any player, goes, wow, this is a great hole.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely the really long ones are silly. And like you said, all the best par 3s, give you a scoring opportunity, but also make you pay if you don't hit a good shot. When you're trying to blast a 3-wood or a wood or something into a par 3, not my favorite, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. We're chatting with Corey Connors. Corey's back home after being in the Open Championship and then heading over to the Paris Games. Yourself and Nick Taylor will represent Canada, and it's not a team event. Like, you're still going over there to I guess, individually play, individually medal. But how do you and Nick, how often, I know there's been jockeying for position too, right? Like we knew it was coming for the most part, but even at the end, I think you just got past Hadwin to get in. Like now that it's you and Nick, how often were you guys talking about this over the course of the season? The likelihood of whoever it was going to be, the 2 guys that were going to go represent Canada at the Olympic Games.
Yeah, I think we were all, not talking about it. I think it was on everyone's mind, but it was a tight race, and so many of the guys have been playing well. I just was able to get past Adam Hadwin. I think we all knew that Nick was in a pretty good spot to earn his place on the Olympic team, but there was a lot of guys fighting for the last spot. And Mac Hughes had some good weeks. Taylor Pendrith with the win, and then Hadwin finishing well at the Memorial Tournament just after the RBC Canadian Open, snuck ahead of me, and I was able to, play well at the U.S. Open and just get past him again at the end of the qualification. So we basically didn't talk about it at all, but I think it was on everybody's mind.
It's been a really busy schedule for you, and now you have the Olympics coming up. Like, how much have you been able to kind of think about, the tournament itself, but even the logistics involved, in being at the Olympics and everything that entails, kind of the day-to-day scheduling that goes with that?
Yeah, we're fortunately, we've got some folks at Golf Canada and the Canadian Olympic Committee working hard, and they've kind of organized a lot of the stuff for us as far as the accommodations and moving us around. Yeah, the logistics have been handled, pretty well, but it's been exciting to, explore and trying to, organize some tickets to go watch some other events before the golf week starts, and planning to go over there for the opening ceremony as well, which I think will be really exciting. But definitely have had some help with that, and like you said, it's kind of a last minute thing, so haven't had a whole lot of time to be able to plan, but we've crammed it in, and I'm really looking forward to it. Should be a fun time, and I think we're all organized and ready to go.
With Corey Connors, and some of the pictures have gone viral of the security pictures the guys have had to take for the Olympic Games. I don't know. Have you seen yours yet? Like, how are you looking in that pic?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I don't know why they're using that, but when we were filling out some information months ago, it was like basically you couldn't even like use your camera app on your phone. It was like through a website, and you used your camera to take it, but it was through their website, and like just yeah, everyone looks weird. I'm included in that. It's
Okay, good.
Bit of a funny situation, but
yeah, there's some really, it's like mug shots basically, like some of them it's really like weird looking pictures, man.
The way that the app like interpreted the picture, the lighting was they're all pretty dark, and everyone's got everybody's face looks backwards and whatever, but
absolutely.
It's all good.
It's all good. So how would this, I mean, obviously when you grow up playing golf, you're trying to chase a major, you're trying to chase a Canadian Open as a Canadian. Golf in the Olympic Games is still relatively new. How does this rank for you in terms of achievements, like making it, getting to experience it, but also chasing a medal? How would you put that into perspective?
Yeah, it's, growing up as a kid, it wasn't really on my radar because, like you said, golf's been new to the Olympics the last two times. It's really exciting though. It's a huge honor to represent Canada, and it's a huge stage. Growing up watching the Olympics every time they were on, summer and winter Olympics, and knowing how big of an honor it was for the athletes who were there to represent their country, and I'm kind of getting to feel that, so it's definitely a big deal. Hoping to continue to play well and give myself a chance to win a medal. It's when it comes down to it, it's just another golf tournament, but it's going to have an extra special feel to it, and I think there will be some added excitement. And Paris is a great city, and I know that the golf will be a tight race, but it'll be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that. But huge honor to represent Canada, and huge honor to be an Olympian now for the second time.
How well do you know the course, and how do you think it kind of shapes up for your game and where your game is at right now?
Yeah, I don't know too much about the course. Was asking some questions to some of the European guys over the last few weeks at the Scottish Open and the Open Championship. It's a staple on the European Tour or DP World Tour schedule, and hosted a Ryder Cup. So I've seen it on TV. I've not been there myself, but I think it's going to be good for my game. I think it's demanding off the tee and into the greens. You can really make up some ground with good iron play and getting the ball in the fairway off the tee. So those are strengths of mine, and I feel like I'm doing that really well right now. As well as putting. Putting's been coming along, and I feel like all parts of my game are pretty strong, but especially the iron play, which I think is really important at this place. My only looks at it have been on my golf simulator at home, so I don't know. We'll see how
Nice.
realistic that is, but got a few rounds in.
Okay. Do you putt in the sim or do you just hit shots?
Just hit shots. I throw it on the auto putting, but so you can't really get a feel for the greens. But from tee to green, got some ideas.
Yeah, that'd be like Happy Gilmore. Like, what's the point of trying? Like, you're not going to get a read on the greens by putting on a mat, in your basement. But that's how often do you do that in preparation? Let's say you're going to Augusta. I don't know if you'd have Augusta on that, or you're playing Pebble, or whatever it happens to be. You're going to Hamilton, and you have access to it. Is that a part of your preparation? Like, get into the cage at home and use the sim?
Not typically. Funny enough, I did it for Troon as well. In preparation for that, it was okay, but mostly on tour we go back to the same venue, so I'm pretty familiar. I know what it takes, or I'm just a lot more familiar with some of those venues. This one will be relatively new, so not typically part of my preparation, but it was just, I don't know, been practicing at home a little bit and figured it wouldn't hurt to check it out.
That's cool. Do you have your caddy there, like taking notes, sitting there at the sim?
No, I did take a few notes that I'm going to share with him when he goes to scout it out as well, and some of my thoughts from what I've learned, playing it virtually.
I like it. With Corey Connors, how often are you allowed to reach out to Mike Weir for the President's Cup? Like, it's right around the corner. Obviously, that the team's going to be announced, I would guess, in the next month or so. How often do you contact Mike? Hear from Mike? Where are you at in terms of your pursuit of getting back into the President's Cup in Montreal?
Yeah, well, first of all, trying to let my golf do the talking and try and earn a spot on that team. But he's always open. He's always watching us. He sends messages to the group of international players quite often, and we all know he's watching. Get to chat with him frequently, or not too frequently, but once in a while. I'm really looking forward to being on that team. Hopefully can continue to play well and earn my spot. It'll be pretty cool to play an event like that in Canada, and for however many Canadian guys make the team. But biggest thing, I got to focus on playing golf, and hopefully the rest will take care of itself.
Absolutely. Well, safe travels. Good luck over there. We'll be tracking you, the whole country, obviously tracking you and Nick and all the Canadians over there. It's such a cool event, cool experience. So enjoy it, and we'll catch up again down the road. Thank you for doing this today.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate having me. Take care.
You got it. There he is, Corey Connors, good Canadian boy on his way over to Paris.
Yeah, he's had a good year, man.
Yeah,
he's had a really good year. He's been
really
very consistent, and I guess part of that has to do with getting in the sim, right?
I love that, man.
No rest, just hey, let's fire it up in the sim. And I wonder, a guy like that, like, he's got it in his house. Like, does he say, I want to play Greenbrier, or I want to play Doral? Like, what would he? I don't know. Like,
it's a good question. Does he have a course? We should have asked him that. Like, do you have a sneaky sim course? Because I'll play in the sim, a fair amount in the winter time, and I have buddies that are constantly in the sim, and they'll text me and say, I found this course in Quebec or in Alabama, or there's this course down in Louisville you wouldn't believe, I'd never heard of before, that just presents like incredibly well in the sim, like looks amazing, plays really cool. It's kind of unlike any other sport. I guess you could have a batting cage maybe in your house, right? And you could somehow doctor that to Paul Skeens, you get someone throwing 98 to 100 or something like that in the cage, and that could mimic maybe what you're about to see.
I guess, yeah. I mean, and tennis guys have the tennis courts, basketball players have the basketball courts. Like, would you put a sim in? Was that something
I'd love to put a sim in? It's not an option for me right now, but I would love to put a sim in. Maybe someday, Frankie. Maybe someday.
I'm just, what I'm doing? I'm just putting it out there.
It's out in the universe.
Putting it out there. There could be, I don't know, there could be someone who says, I want Hayes to talk about my simulator.
That's possible. You're right. That is possible.
Little deal to be had. That's all.
Okay, I appreciate that. I understand where you're going. Speaking of deals to be had, you see this, that the NBA, this is breaking news, have rejected Warner Brothers' bid to match the Amazon Prime package.
No.
Yes, saying in a statement, quote, Warner Brothers Discovery's most recent proposal did not match the terms of Amazon Prime Video's offer, and therefore we have entered into a long-term arrangement with Amazon. In other words, that's it for the NBA on TNT. And inside the NBA, they got one more year left. They have the rights next year, and that's it. So Barkley and Shaq and Kenny and Ernie, it's done. It's over.
We all know where it's going, man. Like, we know the streaming services are going to be involved, and it's all headed that way. But that NBA on TNT is one of the best sports programs you can watch.
Yes.
Like, it really is. It is a shame. And I think that was, part of the conversation was that they would be able to match and they would be able to be involved. And that sucks. Like, I hope those guys can be found in some kind of capacity because they're too good to not be front and center prime time.
Yeah, TNT's had the rights for 40 years, I think. And that's business, right? Like, that's the way it goes. There's no friends when you're at the negotiating deal or table. And the NBA took the bigger deal. Amazon's tough to fight with. Let's call it what it is. Amazon, if Apple's involved, how do you compete with Apple financially? If Apple
how do you
wants
compete
something?
with Amazon? I got 6 boxes a day coming here. I'm sure your house is the same way, and everyone else's house is the same way, right?
Yeah, you can't. Like, if Amazon puts their focus into something, basically only Apple can stop them. Like, how many companies that are in this world can stop them? And Amazon wants in. The NBA has let them in. Amazon is in on the NFL. They're now in on hockey. Right up here, it's coming. So
that'll be interesting.
That's
too.
where it's going. Yeah.
Like, we haven't talked about that, and I don't know, we haven't heard anything about who's going to be involved. But
no.
Hockey's an interesting one, right? Like, I wonder how closely they follow the Thursday night football model that they built.
Yeah, because that's a big production. What's interesting is that Amazon, like, you think, okay, it's going to be so different and so unique, and it's really not. Like, Amazon's Thursday night is just a different package, but it's not really any different in terms of the production from what ESPN does, NBC does. Like, they have a pregame show, and they have play-by-play, they have an analyst, they have a postgame show, and they leave.
And they got a big panel. Like,
yes,
they went big on the panel. There's a lot of players. There's a lot of
but that's
big
no
name
different.
guys.
That's what you get in the NFL.
Sure.
That's no different on the ESPN. ESPN, they got Randy Moss, and Teddy Bruschi, and Rex Ryan. It's the same thing.
And they're on location. Like, every Thursday, they're on location.
They're on location. But again,
right?
I'm not here to pump the tires of ESPN necessarily, but ESPN does the same thing with Monday Night Football. Like, they have
right.
their panel on the road on Monday night. And it's, again, I'm not saying that that's the wrong decision. What I'm saying is Amazon is simply doing exactly what ESPN has done and NBC has done, and it's just a different provider.
For sure.
And it's a different way to find it. The only difference is the streaming element, is the fact that it's online and you need to subscribe to it as opposed to get it in a cable package. Yeah. But even it's all starting to bundle. Like, that's the future. Because no one can pay for everything. Amazon, Apple, Netflix, cable, like, it's just going to bundle and it's just going to be cable again.
It's too much. It's everything now.
Yes.
You have to have so many different subscriptions to get all the different shows that you might want. But you know what you get on Thursday night? You get Al Michaels, and he is fired up for a 7-3 win.
He's always
for
jacked.
The Bears over, I don't know, pick a team, the Saints.
Yep, he's always jacked, man.
He's so jacked.
He's
up.
always jacked. And I think they've done pretty good. Him and Herbstreit. Like, Kirk Herbstreit's, he's really good. And Michael still has it. He's just got to, sometimes it's a little bit slow. But they've had brutal games, like you're saying.
That's the thing. Terrible
brutal
games. So, like,
man.
the field goal will happen at the end of the game. And he's like, I just got to get out of here.
I got to get out of here.
Horrible.
Well, remember last year it was established, I was not aware of this, that Al Michaels has never knowingly eaten a vegetable in his life. Mm-hmm. And apparently his routine, every halftime of every game he calls, it's a steak. It's a steak, and I want to say potatoes, but potatoes are vegetable. Like, potatoes are vegetables. So, like, is Al aware of that? Like, are they fried? Is there something on there that make them somewhat, less
mashed
healthy?
Potatoes, those things are coming buttered up and creamy.
Probably
and
chives.
He is shoveling medium rare steak and mashed potatoes
Yes, he is.
into his mouth at halftime.
Yes, he is. Like, what a contract that guy has.
And then after the game, he's straight to the Bird, and he's back to LA.
Private
Bird, yes. This guy flies private to and from the game, in and out of LA, and he's gone.
Right. And he stays at a different hotel than the rest of the staff.
Sure.
which I always found somewhat unnecessary.
And the other thing that's crazy, apparently, I don't know if this is true, when they do the production meeting, it's at his hotel.
Yes, of course it is.
Everyone's got to go to his hotel.
Absolutely. Like I want to say it's like 4 seasons or something. Like it's 5-star penthouse, and Al doesn't move until he's ready to go call a game. Yeah. And listen, he might be the greatest play-by-play of all time. He's one of the greats. He's a Mount Rushmore play-by-play guy. He's phenomenal. He's seen it all, done it all, and I appreciate that leverage, and I appreciate that negotiating tactic for Al Michaels.
If you're not going to do it and use it at that age, after all you've done, like what are you doing?
Absolutely.
You're wasting it.
Do your thing, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, the NBA on TNT is going to come to an end after next season. That's wild, man. So that means if you thought Barkley was, winging it in the past and couldn't care less about what anyone thought, wait till you see what Charles is going to bring this year.
Oh, God. He is going to say whatever he wants.
I think that's going to be terrifying for Silver in the NBA. And TNT is going to be like, there's nothing. You think we're going to fire Charles Barkley? You just screwed us so bad. They're going to be so vindictive and so mad. Although that said, I guess the NBA's counter will be, you could have literally matched it and you didn't. Like their interpretation of whatever TNT sent back was not the equivalent of what Amazon is. And it's the NBA's league. It's their rights. They've made a decision, but
I wonder if that's the last of it. Like I wonder if that really is.
It sounds
the
like
book is closed.
I think
guess
it sounds like it, because even the statement that TNT made a couple of days ago. Remember, I read it on the air, and it read as if it was like TNT knew it wasn't enough, but they wanted it public so that the general public was like siding with them. Basically putting pressure on the NBA to accept their counteroffer. That's kind of how it read, without knowing exactly what the details were. But yeah, it's an unbelievable studio show, and it's probably the most famous one going, or real close to it. And it's in ways it's the most popular thing in the NBA, like close to it. Like the content that panel supplies is almost as much as like any individual team supplies. Like they're the 31st team in the NBA.
For sure. And those guys, listen, they have enough money. Like they don't need to do it.
Yeah,
they obviously want to do it. They're passionate about it, and it's given them a big following, and it probably gives them, a lot of purpose. So I kind of wonder what those guys formulate. Like we may have not seen the last of them. They might still do something.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how they get that on the air or where you're going to be able to see it, but just the fact that they have so much money and it's not something they need to do, they want to do, would lead me to believe that maybe we do see something that they put together.
Yeah, exactly. And NBC's back in, right? The NBC had NBA games forever. I remember that. My childhood was in the 90s watching Jordan and the Knicks games and all that. Knicks Pacers always on NBC. Bob Costas. I'm pretty sure Bob Costas was at the Garden during the OJ chase. I think it was Bob. They threw it back to, who was the guy on NBC that used to... Anyway.
If it was a baseball game, Nick Castellanos would have hit a home run during that.
Probably right. That all he does is hit massive home runs during crazy moments. All right, Brendan Dunlop will join us in about 20 minutes, and role play level of concern still to come. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, so we're talking about this NBA news, which affects Canadians as well, because we pick up, the feed a lot up here on Canadian networks, including TSN, where, the NBA on TNT is coming to an end next year. They have one more year left, which means, Charles Barkley and Shaq and Kenny Smith and Ernie Johnson inside the NBA. I guess that'll come to an end. We'll see what happens. Amazon's in, NBC's in, ESPN's in. It's a massive deal. The NBA's just made a fortune on this, like just a massive amount of money, and the players are going to be ecstatic. The owners are ecstatic. Adam Silver's ecstatic, and Silver's going to take heat here again because Barkley in particular, Shaq, Kenny, they're not going to be a part of the program moving forward unless they go somewhere else and work somewhere else.
Who knows, man? Amazon's got so much money, they could offer those guys an obscene amount of money to go over there.
They could. But NBC getting the NBA back means John Tesh and his round ball rock is returning, I guess. So this track, which is one of the more famous, like between this and like the Hockey Night soundtrack, Champions League, You know, there's a couple of jingles where you hear them. The Masters jingle, CBS, that is just right when you hear it, you know exactly what it is.
Keep it going, JP.
It's
Keep
so
this
good.
going. This is so good.
Well, Cause was playing this yesterday, and I made the ignorant mistake. And sometimes you're in the wrong. I was whistling this down the halls, and multiple people look back and like, you can't whistle when there's other people around and you're in a working environment.
Why?
Well, it's just I think it's really ignorant and annoying for people.
Well, I guess if you're on the move, you hear it for like 2 seconds. If you're hanging around, then yeah, you can't be doing it.
No.
You know what I mean? Like if you're mobile, who cares? You're in and you're out.
I'm not sure. I don't think whistle guy, like 3 seconds of whistle guy is still really annoying in a working environment. And again, there are some times where people are just in a bad mood and you're talking to someone and they give you the look and you're like, that's a you problem, not me.
Yeah,
you're in a bad mood.
That.
Yeah,
I've noticed that where we
lot.
work. Well, when we're sitting outside the radio studio, there's those editing suites.
Yes.
And sometimes we'll be chewing the fat prior to the show, and one of those guys will like turn around, give you a little stink eye, and then make it a point to really close their screen door. You know what I mean?
The moving or the rolling door close is such a please shut up moment.
Yeah,
and
they
really
just
appreciate
stare you
it.
down the whole time they close that door.
Well, that's what I'm talking about here. I was whistling, and it was really, really an ignorant move by me. Whistle guy at work is just not possible. All right, hour 2 coming up. Brendan Dunlap will join us, and role play level of concern. Frankie Corrado's in here. I'm Brian Hayes. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.